Hello everybody, and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well, and today I'll be doing a review of the brand new film that just came out this evening, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which is the follow-up to Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which is the story of Miles Morales and a plethora of other Spider-Men, multiverse Spider-Men stuff. So let's just say there's a lot of stuff going on in this sequel, and a lot of things to like, a lot of things to not really like all that much also, and also a theater experience that is definitely going to come into play during this review of the film also. Before we further, please make sure to smash that like button, not that fire button if you're watching on Odyssey, and smash the rumble button as well. Also make sure that you're subscribed to the channel with the bell notification on, that way you know if our video or live stream goes live on the channel. All right, so Across the Spider-Verse. For many of you already know this, if you saw my review of Across the Spider-Verse, or rather Into the Spider-Verse from a few years ago, that overall I enjoyed the story. I thought the story was actually very well told. I thought that it was a very clean, very crisp story, but the animation style kind of drove me nuts. Now, I want to be very specific here. The actual visuals of the film, the actual visuals and the animation actually look really, really good. It's very, very unique. It's the movement of the characters. It's almost like this weird stop motion, and it just does not work for me very well. Again, talking here specifically about the first movie, I can say that in this new movie, they definitely, I think, focused on that a little bit more, because I didn't notice that same type of stop motion effect that was so prominent in the first film, or at least to the same degree. So kudos to them for, at the very least, tweaking some things. Must have tweaked it just a little bit for it to not be nearly as prominent, because it was a big bother in the first film. However, that was then replaced with, at moments, and again, not really, and thank the Lord, not throughout the entirety of the movie, but moments when it honestly felt like there was just a spasm going on screen. I'm trying to think of the other word for it, because there were moments where you almost felt like there was a seizure happening on the screen in front of you, because there are so many flashing screens and flashing colors and all things going haywire and wacky and changing fonts and changing everything. And I know that some people might say, but that's what makes it great, because it's creative. Well, for me, it was like a headache, because it was like, wait a minute, there's just so much stuff going on screen. It feels like you're watching ADHD on screen. It feels like you are having this seizure happening on screen at times, and I just don't think that works very well for it. But luckily, really, ultimately, when it comes down to the negatives of the movie, that's kind of where most of it stops, right? There's definitely some story elements that I was not a huge fan of, and this movie especially is a little bit long in the tooth, right? It's a 2-hour, 20-minute movie, and there was a moment, especially in the very middle of the film, where I just was sitting there and I was looking at my watch and I was like, oh my goodness, okay. I didn't think that I would be feeling this, because the beginning of the film starts off very, very strong. There's actually a long intro sequence that works very, very well, focusing mostly on the Spider-Gwen character, and so I thought that was interesting, finding out more about her backstory, and there's a couple other sequences in the movie where you find out about some of the other Spider people in the movie, and I thought that was really nice. But also, again, you get to this point where I was just sitting there and it was just like, oh man, I'm feeling it, and my eyes started to get really, really heavy, and I was thinking to myself, hey, I know I wasn't tired going into this movie, right? I typically am very well aware of myself. I didn't fall asleep, but I almost did, because again, that middle lull of the movie just really, I honestly just felt it. I feel like they definitely could have cut out probably a good 20 minutes of the movie, and it still would have been as effective and as fast-paced as many of the sequences in the movie actually are. But other than that, and a couple of other moments story-wise where there's, a couple lines here and there that I think are definitely a little bit too on the nose with just, again, bringing in politics into the story. And again, it's nothing egregious. It's not like they're saying anything necessarily from, modern day 2023 that you're going to be like, oh, what the heck is this? It's more of just like random moments and conversations where it's basically the one that comes across my head is you have at one point the Peter Parker Spider-Man talking about, hey, I have a kid, and hey, I had to do this for 9 months. It's just like having a kid. And then it's like the women are there and being like, shut up and go into your place. And there's a couple of moments in this movie where it's like, hey, women are going to come in and they're going to put the man in their place. I just, again, those things are definitely there, and it definitely needs to be mentioned. But luckily, that is not the vast majority of the film, and especially from the story's perspective, most of it is actually really, really good. One of the things that I like about this film, especially, is the fact that the story focuses not only on these other Spider-Man characters, but also focuses on Miles Morales, focuses on his background. You know, obviously we had a lot of that in the first movie, finding out more about him, finding out more about his character. But I honestly feel like this movie helped us actually understand his character just a little bit more, especially where it stands and where its place is in the entire multiverse of Spider-Man, right? In the entire Spider-Verse itself. And I think a lot of that is actually helped by the fact that there are so many other Spider-Man. There are so many other characters. There are so many other stories, and they all have their same similar beats, right? They all have these very similar moments in their entire story, but there's just certain things that are changed, certain things that are twisted that would lead to, right, as we learned in the first film, there being a Spider-Gwen universe, there being, of course, the Peter Parker Spider-Man universe, and there's multiple versions of that, and many of these characters still existing in these other universes, just having a different role and going in different directions. And so that was actually a really cool thing, and I think that part of the storytelling was actually done very effectively and worked very well. There's actually times when you have these characters, some of my favorite moments actually, were these longer sequences where you have one character just explaining things, and again, I know that can sometimes fall into the exposition category, but I think it's done in such a way because you have these really great visuals to go along with it, in addition to really great voice acting done throughout the film too. I think Oscar Isaac did the voice of kind of like the villain in the movie, but it's also kind of a very unique twist on a villain where it's like this in between. You kind of got that from the trailer. If you've seen the trailer, you should know what I'm talking about. But I thought he did a very, very good job there. You also have a bunch of other people coming in to do voice work. You have Brian Tyree Henry, Daniel Kaluuya, Flanagan John, Haley Steinfeld, Issa Rae, Jason Schwartzman, Oscar Isaac, as I mentioned, Rachel Dratch, Shamik Moore, Shea Wing. Again, I don't know those people at the very end, but hey, you have a few big names in there with like Oscar Isaac. Oscar Isaac is indeed the one who does the villain in the film, and I thought that he did a very effective job. What I do find interesting is that this movie definitely ends on a cliffhanger, so that's all I'll say about it because I don't want to go much into spoilers, but yeah, it's a cliffhanger, and I actually was looking up on my phone like, hey, is this going to be and do the typical, post-credit scene, mid-credit scene? And it was interesting because the film didn't. I didn't stay to find out for myself, but hey, I found one article and it was like, nope, there's actually nothing after the credits. There's some text teasing the fact that there's going to be another one, but that's pretty much it. You don't really need to stay for that. And I thought that was, again, I have to respect them for that, right? Because that is the modern thing you do, right? Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, all of the MCU films, it seems, especially of the, the later phases, all of them have at least a mid-credit, at least end, credit sequence to, set up for the next movie. Whereas this one ends on this cliffhanger and you're left saying, hey, I want to know what's going to happen. I want to know the next thing. I want to actually find out a little bit more about this story. So overall, it's a pretty entertaining movie. Other than having those moments, as I'd mentioned, where there are those problem moments, especially with the pacing in the middle. I think the middle definitely slows down quite a bit. You do still have those animation problems as well, especially since there's certain moments where there's just too much going on screen. There's just too many crazy things happening all at the same time, and it becomes kind of nauseating, to be fairly honest. And let's just say if you have any audio visual or especially any visual cues, like if certain things, maybe you have a type where certain flashing on screen can impact you into having seizures, definitely avoid this movie because it has a lot of that. There should be a lot of warnings attached to this movie, I think. But I also think that it is, even for those who don't struggle with that, sometimes it can be a little bit too much happening on screen. Even in the very beginning, like almost from the get-go, you have the opening credits and you have like 1,000 different versions of the Sony symbol and 1,000 different versions of the Columbia. And I'm like, okay, I get what you're trying to do, but there is a limit. And slow down. All right? Just slow down just a little bit, because when they take the time, when they actually have those longer exposition moments, and when they are doing that backed by really good visuals, it works really, really well. And luckily, that is the majority of the film, but there are those moments throughout. Now, I did mention at the very beginning that there's going to be a theater experience that I'm going to bring into this, because I do think that it might impact the way that I viewed the film. I think that it could have possibly made me have a little bit more of a negative review and negative impact on this film. And so for the sake of transparency, I did want to mention it. I typically bring that up. If I ever fall asleep in a movie, I'll say, especially if it's true, like, hey, I went to go see an 8 o'clock showing, and I typically am much more prone to fall asleep when I go to see a film at that time. And so I'm going to give it another chance. So the fact that I did feel this lull in the middle may not hold true if I see this movie again. And I think one of the reasons that definitely hurt hurt the film's experience was my local theater. All right. So as many of you all know, I live in the Chattanooga area, and there is an AMC in downtown Chattanooga. I've already sent a complaint, not in a Karen way. I was like, I don't want money back, or I don't want passes. I just want you to fix the problem. And last week when I went to go see the movie in the theater, it's the Big D format. It's basically the rip-off version of IMAX. The bulb was clearly dying, all right? So there was flickering on screen because you could see that the bulb was dying. That's, for those who maybe don't know, if you ever see your screen, if you ever go to a movie theater and you see the screen, and especially there's a bright sequence is when you can see it the most, right? You can see it throughout the entirety of a movie, but especially the bright sequences, it's a little bit more apparent. But you'll see like this flickering happening on screen. That's really bad. That means that the bulb is on the brink of death, and it means that the theater is basically either too lazy or just doesn't have the resources to actually replace that bulb. And that's a bad thing. So I had actually told AMC, I had actually messaged AMC through their complaint line saying, hey, look, I don't want anything. All I want you is just to fix the problem. I just want to be able to go to this theater because 9 out of every 10 times, even outside of this one single, right, Big D format, this is happening. Right? The bulbs are on the brink of death, and it's so distracting. It's so annoying. I go back this week hoping, hey, maybe they fixed it since then. Nope. It's actually even worse. So the entire movie, I'm having to deal with this flickering bulb, and so that's annoying me. And so, again, that could have definitely impacted my view, especially of the middle of the film, because it is on the long side. But also, you then had the sound. So IMAX is a pretty, big format, right? It's the big screen, it's the big sound, and IMAX is very, very specific about that, and theaters can't really do what they want with the sound, right? They're actually very much tied to following IMAX's standard, and if there's a problem, IMAX is usually very good about making sure that the theater actually does something about it because they're the ones actually that typically go in. With Big D being this off-brand format, it doesn't have that same type of quality control, but even the sound itself of this movie was very, very low. In the very beginning, you've got kind of like a lot of voiceover being done by the Gwen Stacy character, by the Spider-Gwen character, and a lot of it I was like, wait, I can't really hear what's going on. Is this the sound mixing, or is this just actually my theater experience? So I'm kind of actually tempted to go to the better AMC near me, which is a little bit further away, which is the reason why I didn't go to that, because especially at this time of night, my wife has work in the morning, and so I don't like to be out too late, especially with our dogs and everything. I don't want to mess up the schedule too much, but I think I might have to go see this movie again because, again, what I saw, I really liked, and there are those moments in between, and I do still hold to those writing moments, though, where there is, again, some political tinge to it, or at the very least, some identity politics stuff attached to it as well, but luckily, that stuff is very, very limited, and I think that most people will be able to either just not even notice it or to look past it altogether. So overall, I've had to give this film a grade. I think I'm going to go ahead and give this film a solid B. I think, again, there's a lot of really good things to enjoy about this movie. I really like the characters, especially those voiced by Oscar Isaac. I think his character was probably my favorite. Just also finding out more about his backstory was really a lot of fun. And other than it being a little bit too long in the tooth, I think there's a lot of things to really come away happy with overall. So what are y'all's thoughts on Across the Spider-Verse? According to Metacritic, based on 49 reviews, it's an 86 out of 100. And again, I'd give this film a solid B. So if you like the first film, I think you're going to love this one. That's what it comes down to. If you had issues with the first one like I did, especially when it comes to maybe certain story elements or the animation style, you're still going to have some of those issues, though I do think that they do fix that stop-and-go animation, at least to such an extent to where that didn't bother me. But then also, that could have been the bulb. I could have been saying, oh, I'm not seeing it anymore because the bulb's distracting me. So anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Did you have a similar theater experience, or have you had those before? Was it an AMC? Was it a Regal? And what did you do to try to fix it? Because again, I don't want money back. I don't want anything like that. All I want is to know, hey, just guarantee that I can go to a theater, and 9 out of every 10 times, because obviously things happen, but 9 out of every 10 times I get to go to a movie and I get to see it with perfect picture or near perfect picture and near perfect sound. That's all I ask. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. For this video, smash that like button, let the fire button, obviously smash the rumble button as well. You're all amazing and beautiful people. Again, today is the beginning of June, which is Humility Month. It is the month of the Sacred Heart. So again, a blessed June, a blessed Pentecost time, because we are still in the season of Pentecost as well, commemorating and celebrating every single day of this octave of the Feast of Pentecost as of last Sunday. So again, thank you again for being here. I will have my shoutouts for the month of June up, hopefully over the next day or so, though I will be out this weekend, so I will not have my typical Saturday night live stream, but hey, I'll see a lot of y'all on Friday Night Tights tomorrow. Anyway, you guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, God bless.
And now for a huge special shout out to all of my patrons at the Keeper of the Bifrost level and above, starting off with my patrons over on Patreon: Father Luca Illich, Hymir Irie Hymason, Garrett Searles, Joe Horn, Jonathan Carney, Orange Chat Reviews, who you can check out over at his YouTube channel, Orange Chat Reviews, Laura, the Modern Major General Story, Rosetta Allen, who you can check out at her YouTube channel of Eagle Rider, and Miss Modern Muses, who you can check out at her YouTube channel by the same name as well. Also to my Subscribestar peeps, Matt317, check him out over on Twitch, Fast Reaction, The R, Mr. Roy, J-Rod, The Beer Guru, and ZK-Man, you can check out over at xtheboundaries.co. And lastly, to my local supporters, Miss Minnesota Hockey Fan, How About a Hockey Player, J.H. Schwalbach, and Robert Barnes, the amazing lawyer. Thank you all very much for supporting me at that Keep It the Bifrost level and above. And if you want your name shout out at the end of every video and live stream, make sure to check out the top link in the video description in order to get access to that. Also, there's a level where you get access to an exclusive podcast that I do with my friend John the Flickpick Flickinger, and also to a giveaways channel on my Discord where you get access to the giveaways of various 4K titles, including right now I've got a 4K Steelbook for Training Day. I got the 7th Seal from Criterion, Plane Trains Automobiles, Kubo and the Two Strings, They Live, Train to Busan, tons of others every single week, every single week. I'm going to stick by that. We're doing this live. I just recently gave away the 3 Steelbook collection for John Wick franchise, the amazing Stash Book Collection version. So if you want to have access to various things like that, hey, check out that top link in the video description below. You're all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless.